I'll jump in here, Louis. I thought the comments were spot on here. One of the things that will help you realize the speed that Mark just alluded to by bringing that program forward is having a really good, solid data management plan in place. In the old days when we did vertical manufacturing and we went from discovery to R&D to piloting to commercial manufacturing, it was a lot easier to share information. We had access to the same data, et cetera. And so even with the siloed nature of pharma, which hasn't gone away, we were able to navigate that. It still took a while, but we were able to go quickly. When you start bringing an external contract service provider like a CDMO in, and we plug them into the development timeline, now we've got sort of, quite frankly, different business sensibilities around what is important. That CDMO has a lot of other clients that they have to support. And so we found that having a really clearly articulated data management plan early in the engagement, if you're pre-phase one, you're getting ready to do phase one and actually process design, first in man studies, and you start thinking about how data is going to be shared, at what point it's going to be shared, and where it's going to reside between the two parties, you can really save months off of every discrete step in tech transfer. And we found that to really be a key component of that early conversation and engagement with a CDMO. It also helps flush out some of the intellectual property issues, which can sometimes become a sticky wicket as you move further down the tech transfer discussion, because obviously both parties are throwing their expertise into the question, and understanding what data will be shared between the two parties and how the analyses will be utilized up front is really a compelling way to make sure everyone's facing the same direction. So I found that the data management plan is one of the key elements to try to doing exactly what Mark says, bringing that late stage tech transfer conversation early into the overall program planning exercise.
Are there, Bikash, places where you need to focus with the CDMO? And by that, I mean, does the CDO have limiting factors of, hey, we can't do that? Do you find that that integration of data, that management is difficult, or has that pretty much been worked out in our industry now because there is so much outsourcing?
Well, I would say it's so the sensibility is around releasing data that's not been, for example, reviewed by QA. And all of us that have worked with CDMOs in the past have had that very same conversation. We've completed the runs. We've got analytical test data. We've got in-process data. Some of these vaccines that are being developed have literally 200 different tests that are being applied throughout the different unit operations as they move forward there. Obviously, to see those results early on is something that would be hugely helpful to make sure that the process is behaving the way the process should behave as we move forward. So I think to make sure that the development agreement or the quality agreement that you put in place clearly articulates that while the CDMO may ultimately release the data via QA, that's the official data, there is a vehicle for you to get access to that data almost in real time. There's software solutions you can get today that allow collaboration. Fundamentally, they're collaboration portals in which you've got secure data sites for both parties to take a look at the data. They're segmented from their other customers. You can control user access. They're very easy to use, quite honestly, but they're powerful, particularly as you start moving towards specification setting, et cetera. And those of us that have done a tech transfer outside the US knows things may look the same, but they're not exactly the same. I think David suggested that as well, but we did a tech transfer to Taiwan with a solid dose process, and they had their own Taiwanese version of a German spray dryer. Well, steel is not steel, and bags are not bags, and the thermal properties of those equipment are not the same. And you can do everything exactly the same, size it exactly the same, and not have it come out the same. And so getting early access to that in a really clearly articulated data management plan so everyone feels comfortable with it is, we found that to be a really compelling way to push the conversation forward and still allow the CDMO to follow their normal procedures in terms of official data release and those sorts of things.